Hello sunshines. So in this video we're going to start out looking at the urinary system. And so what we'll look at here is first generally eliminating wastes, then we'll look at the components of the urinary system. We're going to spend the most time today in kidneys and homeostasis, looking at how the kidneys do the functions of the urinary system and help maintain homeostasis of a lot of variables in the blood. This is my cat Fisher. I have another one too. You might see him at some point. He's going to help us with this lecture. Then we'll look at dialysis, transplant surgery, urination, and urinary tract infections. Hold on tight. You're in for a good time. Okay, so excretion is the primary function here. So that's the elimination of wastes from the body. And these wastes are going to be metabolic wastes. So what does that mean? That's things that we make during our metabolism. When we're breaking down components, building molecules, these are things that we produce and don't need. Or we make too much of and need to get rid of some to maintain balance. A lot of those, the nitrogenous wastes, are going to be from muscle function. So let's draw. So metabolic wastes from body's chemical reactions. A lot of nitrogenous are muscle metabolism. Fun fact, different species eliminate their nitrogenous wastes in different ways. So we'll do more solid wastes, like birds with the white urine, and reptiles as well. But we lose a lot of water when we urinate, which is not quite as efficient. Okay, so how do we eliminate wastes? We have several organs that help. What do we eliminate with our lungs? Review, CO2. Our skin, we'll get rid of some solutes, some salts, some water. GI tract, we'll get rid of indigestible wastes, right? Defecation. Indigestible wastes. Indigestible wastes. If we move me up here, you can see in the picture what we're excreting from our skin, lungs, digestive tract, and then from our kidneys. So our kidneys are constantly filtering our blood, deciding what we should keep in our body and what we should excrete. So the components of urine, what we've decided to excrete, is water-based, and then you'll have solutes. And what solutes are there are based on what your blood looks like. And we want to maintain balance in the blood, so if there are high levels of things in our blood, we'll excrete more of them, right? And if there are low levels, we'll excrete less. But the big things here, bicarbonate ions, we'll look at how that affects pH later. Inorganic salts, sodium, potassium, chlorine, hydrogen ions also will affect pH. And then those nitrogenous wastes, urea, uric acid, creatinine. Okay. So components of the urinary system. And this is my other cat, Snuggles. So functions of the urinary system, the big one is they regulate the composition of blood. Right? So if we have high levels of something in the blood, we excrete. So especially true for things that we looked at last time, like sodium, potassium, chlorine. So they're going to regulate those. Etc. And then with the hydrogen and the bicarbonate, those affect pH. So they'll affect pH. And then it helps regulate blood pressure and volume. Oh, I'm having a hard time being focused today. I'm sorry. I'll straight and narrow it. Okay, so it regulates fluid volume and pressure. So if we have a high blood pressure, we'll get rid of more fluid, decrease the fluid volume, and we'll also then decrease our blood pressure. Right? So long-term blood pressure changes will be made here. Short-term, we can vasodilate, we can vasoconstrict. Long-term, kidneys control volumes of fluid. Right? Regulate H2O levels. And we've looked previously a little bit at hormones that do so, but we'll see them again briefly as well today. The kidneys have huge amounts of blood flow, and so at this outer portion, the cortex of the kidneys, we're going to be filtering that blood. We'll decide what salts, solutes to keep in, how much water, and that'll be based on blood pressure and hormones, and that internal pressure there already. Oh, look at that. So the organs involved, the kidneys are the stars of your urinary system. They're going to do almost all the functions. That's where we're filtering the blood, that's where we're making urine, and then from that point on, we're just sending it through the pathway out of the body. So the ureters, kidney, down to the bladder. So they are transport tubes. And then the urinary bladder is going to be where we will hold on to that urine, where we'll store it until it's ready to be excreted. It's a storage spot. Holding tank for urine. Oh, and I left this guy on here because I think it's great. I kind of ruined one eye, but he's definitely, as Tyra Banks would say, smizing, smiling with his eyes. So I couldn't cut him off. I don't know. Okay, it doesn't matter. And then we've got the urethra. So this is going to be the tube from our bladder out. And males' urethras are going to be long and curved. Females are going to be very short. And in males, it's going to pull double duty and also transport sperm out. Females will have a separate spot for sexual reproduction in the vagina. Okay, so let's look more at the kidneys first. So the kidneys are in the posterior portion of your abdominal wall. Embedded there, they're going to have fat around them, the perirenal fat capsule, to help cushion them, but they are very superficial, right? They're in the lumbar region, so lower back, maybe a little bit higher than you might guess though. And they're reddish brown in color, shaped kind of like beans, about the size of your fist. And so, as we've said before, they regulate the amount of water, dissolved substances that are filtered in the blood, removed from the blood, returned to the blood, and things they don't return become urine. And so here, we've got a human kidney. There is pig kidneys. That's what we would dissect if we were in person. You'll notice a lot of fat in there. And then there's a rodent. So you'll notice that there's these histologically different, or they have different tissues in different parts to do the different functions of the kidney. Okay. So the outer portion, that lighter part, is called the renal cortex. So remember, the cortex of the brain was just the outer lining, right, where we had the neuron cell bodies. So here, the cortex holds these structures called nephrons. So the nephron is the functional unit, make sure you're not helping, of the kidneys. So basically, it's the smallest you can break it down and have all the functions. So they're doing the work. You've got millions of these per kidney, and they're all constantly filtering blood. And we're going to see a more zoomed in picture on the next slide. But this is where we filter the blood and make urine. Okay. So on that cortex, we'll have these blood vessels coming in and this tube system filtering. We'll look more at that. Okay, so here's a zoomed in view with the blood flow, which I really like. So you can see the kidneys when we're in our parasympathetic or rest and digest state, have huge amounts of blood. About 20 to 25% of your blood flow is going here to be filtered. So it'll come in through the renal artery and go through the kidney, through this space in the middle called the renal pelvis, where urine collects before it goes down, and then go to that cortex. Kidney stones generally get stuck in this renal cortex, renal pelvis, excuse me, or they'll make their way through the ureter, bladder, urethra if they're expelled. If your kidney stones don't pass on their own, they might use like lithotripsy. Shock waves go in and break down the stones. Okay, but back to the nephrons. So we've got that blood flow there, and that's where you're going to have the nephrons. So blood flow is going to come in, and then lots of parts of the blood is going to get forced into that tube, and as it travels through that tube, we decide what we want to keep and what we get rid of. So the processes in the nephron, whenever you see processes occurring, you might think it's important. Yes, so you would probably do like a few stars on this page that you know there's going to be 1 to 3 test questions on this. So the first thing that we're doing in the nephron is filtration. So we've got this tufted capillary here called the glomerulus, and we'll see these terms on the next few slides, so don't worry about getting them down now. I just want to give you a big picture overview on this slide, and then we'll go into details. Where you've got this larger arteriole leading in, and then a smaller arteriole leading out. So the blood here is basically like 12 lanes of traffic going down to 2, and so it's going to be under huge amounts of pressure. And this capillary isn't normal. It's got all these little holes or fenestrations. So you have blood under high pressure, and anything that's small enough to fit through there, so things like glucose, water, salts, they'll get pushed into this space here. And when they get pushed into this space, they're going to get pushed down into this capsule. Bigger things like proteins or red blood cells, those are too big to fit through the holes, so they're going to keep going on in blood flow. So like albumin, remember that one for maintaining osmotic pressure? It's going to stay in here, so some of the water will stay with it to make the solute levels equal. Ooh, fun. Okay, so we have got all of this filtrate made, and it's going to start going through the tube system. We want to keep 99+% of what we put in here. We want to get rid of less than 1%. So as it moves through the tube system, we're going to reabsorb. There's Snuggles again. It's not a toddler, it's a cat. If it's not a cat, it's a dog. Hold on. Okay, sorry. So we've got this filtrate made, and we want to keep almost all of it. So what we do is we reabsorb it. Remember absorbing in our digestive tract? We absorb the nutrients from our digestive tract into the blood. So now if we put it back in the blood, we're reabsorbing, right? So reabsorption is the number 2 here. It's pushing stuff from the filtrate back into the blood. Over 99% of the filtrate is reabsorbed. Now some wastes that are too big, like drugs, hormones, or we want to get rid of extra, we push from the blood into the tube, and that's secretion. So getting rid of these large or extra waste that we want to get rid of. And then excretion, eliminating the wastes, sending them out. Right? So we'll see where at the end of the nephron we go. Okay, so how would you define filtration? Try to think of how you would say it. I'll put obviously what I said. So filtration is forming filtrate by moving solutes out of the blood. Water and solutes, moving water and solutes out of the blood. Doing great. And then reabsorption, we'll start here in the next video.